Welcome to another episode of Live from the Blue Seats. I'm your host, Rob, joined by Dave. Producer JL not with us this week, needed a break, and who among us as Ranger fans doesn't need a break right now? Dave, I feel like we jump on this podcast and we often share little anecdotes about the challenges we have with parenting. And I think that no matter what my kids threw at me over the course of the last week or so, would have challenged me as much as being a New York Rangers fan has challenged me this week. I feel like I've aged since that Boston game on Saturday, which somehow feels like it was years ago, right? I mean, that's kind of exactly what I was alluding to. And this is about as bad as it has been in 20 years. Now, you and I, more than 20 years, actually, you and I go back to the original Dark Ages of 1997 to 2004. A lot of current fans don't. But what we're going to do in this podcast, a little bit different. We're going to both, I think, get whatever we need to get off of our chests. So we're going to spend the first 5 or 6 or 7 minutes of the podcast doing that. And then we will obviously get to everybody's questions that they left on the blog. So before we get to the rants, Dave, how you doing?
I am good. I, got a little of a disappointing medical diagnosis, not anything serious. Like I was telling you, I'm pretty sure I tore my meniscus taking care of my sick dog over the last couple of weeks. So there's that. But honestly, I did want to say one thing. You said nothing your kids throw at you is like watching the Rangers over the last couple of days or a couple of weeks. And that was perfect. Because all of a sudden, like, that's great because the Rangers locker room, the Rangers leaders are basically acting like toddlers that didn't get the cheese doodles they wanted after dinner.
Yeah. So let's jump right into it because I think that's a great segue. I'll let you go first. Let me just tee it up. Like I said, there's a couple things happening here where I think both you and I and JL certainly, right? This podcast in general, we've tried to remain as, let's call it like neutral but optimistic as possible, right? Like knowing that and trying to sort of pick through what is the plan, trying to see the moves that Chris Drury was making from his perspective and match it up with what the team needed to do. I don't think anybody believed that the core from 2024 that did make the Eastern Conference Final was going to go any further, right? So I think we were all in agreement that changes needed to happen. But what has happened to this franchise over the last, let's call it 15 to 16 months, has been nothing short of an unmitigated disaster. And so I'm going to let you start, Dave, from whatever point in history you want to start. If you want to go back to the original Dark Ages, if you want to just jump right in with the 10-2 thrashing in Boston, one of the most embarrassing moments in franchise history. But I'm going to let you go. You let me know when you're done, and then I'll get off whatever I need to get off my chest as well.
So I'm going to give a disclaimer. Neither one of us rehearsed or had any notes or anything like that. For those who listen to Blue Seats After Dark, you know that I do a lot of prep work. And I basically, for the most part, I'd say 80% of that recording is off of a script so that I know I'm talking about factual things. There is no script for this. And I'm just going to go with the kids thing again. One of the things that always frustrated me about the 7 p.m. start times was my girls go to bed at 7 p.m. And usually, by the time I finally get them down, or we finally get them down, obviously, it's a team effort with the wife, I'm able to watch the second and the third periods. My wife goes, she usually has a little bit of extra work that she has to do. I have never been more, I guess, adamant about not watching these games. And this has nothing to do with the girls or anything like that. It's last night, for example, I was going to turn on the game. And I was like, you know what? Let me check the score. And it was 4-0 already. Like, what the fuck am I going to? I'm not going to turn on a game at 4-0. What the fuck? And then they lose 8-4. So it's not like I missed anything good. I missed a couple of goals from Gabe Perreault, which would have been nice, but I caught those on replay anyway. So this is what the Rangers have done. They have priced us out of going to games. I don't know who's paying $200 to go to see this fucking team anymore. They have made it to a point where I don't even want to watch them when I can, because I can watch a bad team. The Rangers, when they sent out the memo, and not the Drury memo, the real memo that said they're doing a rebuild, the Gordon memo, I could watch them then, because guess what? They were a bunch of kids and we were watching them grow, and they tried. They really tried.
Mm-hmm.
But now we have a leadership group that was supposed to change the way this team acted last year. And now we got JT Miller, who can't even give a fucking quote other than, I thought we did okay. Yeah, okay, sure. You got Vincent Trocheck, who's supposed to be part of this change in the culture, and he takes 2 dumb fucking penalties in the first period. And the only person that is speaking out is the one that everybody still wants traded, is Mika Zibanejad. He's the only one saying, we suck. And yet everybody still wants to trade him. I caught so much shit for saying the Rangers should not trade for JT Miller. I caught it from people on the blog staff. I caught a ration of shit from Suit, by the way, which is hilarious.
Wow.
I love Suit, but I caught a ration of shit for that. I caught a ration of shit. I think I was still on Twitter when that trade went down. I don't even remember anymore.
No, I wasn't. It was about a year ago. It was last January. Amazingly.
So, that might have been around the time I left. I don't remember offhand. So I caught a ration of shit on, we'll just call it social media, for saying the Rangers should go after Elias Pettersson and not JT Miller. Oh, he's too soft. They need this. They need JT Miller. JT Miller, all he is he exacerbates what's going on in the room. Maybe not the right word, exacerbates, but he amplifies what's going on in the room. If they're winning, he makes it better. If they're losing, he makes it worse. And we're seeing the losing part of it. If the rumors are to be believed, he basically said, if you don't put me on Team USA, there's going to be a problem. Yet he can't fucking skate or do anything with the puck anymore because he's had a shoulder or whatever injury he's had for the last 6 months. He can't do shit right. And he's supposed to be the captain. And like you said on Blue Sky, the Rangers wasted assets in trading for Miller. You can only fire the trade gun so many times, and they wasted a prime asset in Filipino, a prime asset in the first-round pick, and a prime asset in Victor Mancini. They could have gone out and gotten somebody who wasn't 32 fucking years old. And what do? They go and get him, and now they say they got to get younger and faster. Well, guess what? JT Miller is not younger. JT Miller is not faster. Now he's got a no-move clause. You know who else has no-move clauses? Everybody. So what the fuck are we doing? This isn't even about on-ice play. This is all about the locker room being a bunch of fucking crybabies and Chris Drury having no fucking plan whatsoever. I don't know what he's doing. At least with Jeff Gordon, even if we didn't like the trades, we had a general idea of what he was trying to do. If anybody here listening to this can tell me what Chris Drury is trying to do from a macro level, a 10,000-foot level, don't miss the forest for the trees level, please let me know, because I have no fucking idea. And at least even the original Dark Ages with Glenn Sather at the helm, the Rangers were trying to load up on stars. They made the offer sheet for Joe Sakic. That didn't work out. That kind of pissed a lot of people off too, which is kind of funny. But they tried to go after the stars. And when they finally got them, they got Pavel Bure, who would have been fine had he not injured his knee. They got Lindros too late. They got Bobby Holik as their first-line center. This is just throwing 33-year-old and hoping to, what? Score more than 2 goals a game? I understand that a team isn't going to win consistently when they lose their two best players. The Rangers have been outscored 30-12 since the Winter Classic. 30-12. And we're supposed to sit here saying, "Oh, trust in Drury." Fuck Drury. Fuck Dolan. I have never been so disappointed. I'm going to use my dad's line. Disappointed in my life with the way this team is being run, and all of it. And I posted this today on the blog. Mark, how do you pronounce this fucking guy's last name?
Chiachio, I think.
Yeah. Mark Chiachio's brother, Michael. What he thought was an innocuous post on Twitter saying Alexis Lafreniere is not a top 6 winger. Guess what? Your brother was developing him. So the shot you thought you took at Lafreniere was actually at your brother, and that is so fucking symbolic of this team and the disorganization and the absolute shit show this team is right now, that family members of current coaches are ripping the players, and in doing so are actually ripping their own family members while doing it. Like, this is just absolute fucking batshit crazy. This team is being run by my 4-year-old. Actually, no, by my 2-year-old. My 2-year-old is, I love my girls. Love my girls. My 2-year-old's a fucking terrorist. Kind of like your 2-year-old, from what I gather.
Yeah, so, I mean, yeah.
It's just, this team is being run by toddlers who don't want to go to bed. I'm so fucking done. I've never wanted to watch a team less. I'd rather watch the New York Jets.
Oof. That's a perfect summation. No, you actually hit on almost everything there. And I think when an organization collapses, and let's make no mistake, right? This is a full collapse. This team went from, remember what John Cooper said about them after, now obviously always easier to be gracious in victory, right? But in the aftermath of the Tampa series, that Eastern Conference final in 2022, John Cooper he said, I went and shook Gerard Gallant's hand and I said, you guys are going to be hoisting the Stanley Cup soon. Now, whether or not that was Cooper just being nice and classy because it's easy to do after you win, maybe, but he's on the record saying he believed that the Rangers were going to be a force in the Eastern Conference, right? So you go from that, right, where your peers in the league are looking at you and thinking you're an up-and-coming dangerous team, right? You then have the Patrick Kane fiasco in 2023, but fine, the Rangers still had a pretty good year that year. They were about on equal footing with a very good version of the Devils, who, by the way, have plenty of their own problems, which are a topic for another podcast. And then you go into 2024, the team wins a franchise record 55 games, President's Trophy, wins their first 7 playoff games. That was about as confident as I have ever been in a Ranger team in my adult life, because I was a child when they won the Cup in '94, that they were going to win it. Now, knowing Florida was a juggernaut, I still really thought that certainly if they could squeak past Florida, they were going to win the Stanley Cup. Even more so than the 2014 and 2015 teams. There was so much to believe in. So to go from that to what they are now, which is an utter fiasco from top to bottom, it isn't just one thing, right? And I think that you described it, David. It's almost more of a death by 1,000 cuts thing, right? It is the poor player development. It is the lack of a plan from the person in charge and his temperament, which I think there's enough smoke there that we can, safely say that affects his ability to make sound decisions, right? He has these fits of rage where he sends out a memo, which he knows is going to be leaked, that will completely destroy the culture of the team. He airs out players after practice in front of the whole team, right? He does these things that we have reporting on, that we know happened, that negatively affect culture. He also has no idea how to hire within the ranks of his organization. Jed Ortmeyer, who has no credentials whatsoever, is running player development. The Rangers have a generations-long problem of not being able to develop talent. The only guy that Chris Drury has drafted that has developed into anything so far is Noah Laba. And I would argue that Noah Laba really isn't ready to play center full-time in the NHL. This is, again, a separate micro issue, but I've been advocating for putting him on the wing. I think if the Rangers just played to their strengths and had Zibanejad and Miller and Trocheck down the middle, they could use Laba's speed on the wing. That might have been another way to do this. And it also eases Laba's development and transition into the NHL, right? He's a guy that people didn't expect to get here that fast, but they've rushed him. They have no other fucking organizational depth at center. So he has a full-time job now that he's probably not ready for. His metrics are terrible. I'm sorry. I like the kid and I think
they are
good, but it is emblematic of how clueless they are. The latest example is Jonathan Quick, right? So this is to me, and this is absolutely nothing negative about Quick, the player or the person, because he's been nothing but a good soldier for this team. He's basically been the opposite of, and I think probably in many ways, one of the small positive pieces of culture of the New York Rangers over the last few years, but he clearly cannot be a starting goaltender in the NHL anymore. Steve Valiquette said this: when you're a backup, you need more time to recover. As you age, you need more time to recover. He's played every game since the Shesterkin injury, and he's been awful. His save percentage is .779, and the Rangers are probably going to Marty Beer on him if they keep playing him. And so when the obvious move is to call up Dylan Garand, who's played almost 200 games since he's been drafted at either the WHL or the AHL, he is ready, right? You do need a certain amount. You're not supposed to rush goalies. Again, this is a Valiquette thing that he's talked about, but you got to find out if he's ready. He's a 23-year-old kid. He's played 120 games or so of pro hockey. Add in his WHL games. He's over 200 games since he's been drafted at lower levels of hockey in his development. The Rangers delusionally still think they can make the playoffs, and they would rather not take the risk of starting a rookie goalie, and they're going to hitch their wagon to Jonathan Quick. And so they are simultaneously fucking up Dylan Garand's development. They're fucking up likely last year of Jonathan Quick's career. They're tanking his trade value, by the way, which is another not so insignificant piece of this. And again, it all comes back to the fact that they still think they can win. And I think that's ridiculous. Now, ultimately, we know, because James Dolan went on the air and said this, Chris Drury is going to be the person that gets the first shot at fixing this. Now, whether or not he sees this all the way, I know it's laughable, but whether or not he sees it all the way through is a different story. I don't think he has unlimited time, although obviously Dolan, let's say, they're hang around forever. He was still here in a consulting capacity, like as recently as 2022. But the thing that worries me, Dave, is not even necessarily the pure roster building stuff, because I think, and we've talked about this, right, during the better days, there have been moments of clarity and good judgment from Chris Drury, right? The 2022 trade deadline is arguably maybe the single best trade deadline the Rangers have ever had. The Kopp, Vetrano, Mott trade deadline, right? So the Vincent Trocheck signing has turned out to be a very good signing. The Adam Fox contract extension is a great extension. I know people don't love the Mika Zibanejad contract because of the no move clause, but as you pointed out, he's been a good soldier. He's rebuilt his game. He's on pace for 70 plus points in a very bad offensive year for the whole team. So I'm not going to kill him for that. You need a number one center. He's a fine backup plan if you can't get Jack Eichel, right? So there are these things that he does in isolation that make sense, but there is no plan. And the other major red flag to me, and this is the thing that I think pisses me off the most, is that he has turned this organization into an operation for his friends getting jobs. It's not unlike the fucking Donald Trump administration. This is not a serious operation. He has hired Mike Greer, a friend of his, Ryan Clough, a friend of his, Mike Sullivan, who I really, really want to like. And I don't want to get on him because it's just too early. And I do believe he's a good coach, but his whole fucking assistant coaching staff are his friends from Boston, including fucking David Quinn. And I don't want to go too far down the assistant coach thing, but again, it is emblematic of a larger issue, which is this has now become cronyism, and I'm going to give my friends jobs, and it's all fucking USA Hockey people. And the thing you alluded to earlier, Dave, about JT Miller basically saying, I'm going to turn this into a toxic mess if I don't get named to Team USA. All this has become is friends taking care of friends. And that's why those quotes or lack of quotes from him and Trocheck after these games are very revealing, because they know that if they tread too far in an emotional direction, that might catch the attention of Bill Guerin. They might get left off the team, right? So, or it could just sort of cross the line into toxic. And so They care more about their friendship. They care more about the Olympic team, which is disgusting to me. I know that matters to guys, but I'm very much a club over country guy when it comes to hockey. I think most people are. And look, ultimately, you brought up the Jets earlier. One of the things that caused the Jets' demise greatly, in addition to horrible management, ownership, coaching, all of it, was Aaron Rodgers basically being a diva in his second season. I mean, he was kind of a diva in his first season, but his injury was more the catalyst for that catastrophe than anything else. But he basically made them trade for all his friends, Randall Cobb, Devontae Adams. And when the Jets were out of it in 2024 or 2024, he basically turned it into a pickup football game with his friends. He was like, I'm not going to run the plays the offensive coordinator calls. I'm just going to throw the ball to Devontae Adams. And like, this is going to be me and him having fun. I get very much the same vibe from JT Miller and Vincent Trocheck right now. They're treating this like fucking men's league, and it disgusts me. So that's where I'm going to leave my rant. I want to get to these questions, and we can't go all night. I mentioned to you before we started recording that Becky and I have a TV date. We'd like to stay current on the Pit, which drops on Thursday nights. So, we want to not go all night here, but, certainly, just to wrap it up, this is the Dark Ages 2.0. I think some people are resistant to that, and they think there is a miracle coming or a return by Fox and Shesterkin, and maybe the team can get back to respectability before the season ends. No, I'm sorry, it's over, and this thing needs to be torn down.
I want to add one thing to your rant about the assistant coaches.
Please.
And I think this is getting a little overlooked. I get why Sully would want to bring in his guys for assistant coaches, but how can you, as the New York Rangers, approve him bringing in the assistant David Quinn as an assistant coach when he had a he was one of the direct reasons why Alexis Lafreniere is not developing.
Yep.
He destroyed Lafreniere's development and confidence by just simply never playing him. And while part of this is on Laff, there is absolutely no way anybody who knows how to run and build a team, be it a hockey team, a professional team, a corporate team, a manufacturing team, if you have one person who has gone out of their way to completely derail somebody on your team, you cannot bring them back. And we tried to make the David Quinn thing work. We tried to say, hey, the Rangers had a great power play under David Quinn. Let's give him a chance. Obviously, that's not working. How in the world can you bring in David Quinn to coach Alexis Lafreniere again?
Well, and just to add that is you pull the questions up because we'll get to those, but
I have them up. So
the other thing is just so many players are still here from that era. Now I know, and obviously Drury's gotten rid of quite a few, but Mika Zibanejad's still here, Panarin's still here, Adam Fox is still here. He has no credibility with those guys. He got fired and the team got immediately better. So think about if you're Adam Fox or Artemi Panarin, right? And you're like, okay, Mike Sullivan won 2 cups, coached Malkin and Crosby. Penguins were always a really, really good team up until the last couple of years here. But oh shit, what? Why does he think David Quinn can David Quinn's a fucking idiot. We hated him. We played way better under Gerard Gallant, the next year with the same exact team. Even if some of that was just happenstance or, guys getting better and things clicking for, not even reasons directly related to coaching, it's such a bad look and it sends such a poor message and such a mixed message to the players. And like you said, Dave, we joke about vibes, but the vibes do matter. If you look at a team like the San Jose Sharks, right? They started winning some games, their players have come along. And, I caught a clip of them, winning a game in overtime on Instagram. I wasn't even seeking out the highlight, but you could just see the energy and exuberance and joy and passion that the players are playing with. And, look, it wasn't all Tyler Toffoli scored the goal. It's not all kids, but there is a shot of energy when the vibes are good that legitimately helps you win games. Now, obviously you need more than that. And you do need to be a well-built, well-oiled machine, but how David Quinn is a vibe killer. There's just no doubt about it. And a lot of the fan base hates him. And that matters because the atmosphere of Madison Square Garden is rightfully toxic coming from the stands right now. And it's because the fans don't trust the people running the team. and they know bullshit and a bad product when they see it. And that's why they're booing every game, and that's why they're chanting fire Drury, and it's all justified. All right, let's do the questions.
Yep, let's do the questions. All right. Gerard Gallant slander account, still one of the best names out there. As bad as things are in New York, Hartford is looking pretty terrible. Is the front office of the old pack as safe as Drury and the rest of the front office? Or is there a chance we see some turnover with the new GM and head coach after this season? Probably a question for Hope. I miss Hope. Please come back to posting on Blue Sky.
The only thing I'll say is, and without intimate knowledge of the operation there, right? Obviously, Ryan Martin, who you don't like, and you've heard some things about him from, folks that that he's not, not necessarily highly thought of, but he's a buddy of Drury, so he's the assistant GM. He runs the Wolfpack, and Grant Potolny is the head coach. Again, I don't know much about him. I will say when things are going bad across the entire organization, those sorts of changes do happen, right? And Dolan may not want to fire Drury, and he's certainly not going to fire Sullivan, but he may step in and say, hey, you've got to make some material changes to the front office. So maybe Ryan Martin is a casualty at the end of the year. It's certainly possible.
Just keep in mind the mess in Hartford. Where do you think Drury started?
He ran Hartford for a few years.
Yeah. And what you were talking about with openly raging on kids at practice, that's what he did to Vitaly Kravtsov and Leah Sanderson.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not saying they would have been NHL players, but that plays a big fucking role in why they're like, you know what, fuck this, I'm out.
Of course.
So, yeah, I don't have anything else to add other than they're Drury's buddies, like you said.
Right.
All right. Next one, NYC Crash. I honestly don't even know what to ask anymore. Same. How long do you think it will take for this club to get back to relevance? Do you think if JD and Gordon remained, we would have had a better club?
So look, let's come in with a dose of optimism here. These things don't need to take 5 to 7 years. They can take 2 to 3 years. But that requires a full commitment. You've got to be willing to do things like trade Trocheck, maybe even explore a Fox trade, et cetera, right? And we can get into the details about that. Look, there's going to be plenty of time throughout the rest of the year because we're certainly not going to be talking about the games and any sort of playoff race. We'll dig into the macro roster building questions here. Regarding JD and Gordon, yes, they would be better. I don't think they would be contenders is my honest answer. I don't think it would have devolved into the utter embarrassing mess that it is today. But, Montreal reminds me a lot of the Rangers, which makes sense. Gorton is the architect. Like, they're not a particularly good possession team. They're kind of a counterattacking, score on the power play, win an overtime team. That model, it has a chance to succeed, but you're never going to be a juggernaut. I think they're probably a first or second round playoff exit as currently built. JD made a lot of questionable decisions, including the Trouba trade and extension. And, he also was, pardon the very, very vulgar image here, but it's just where my mind is. He was basically erect when they drafted Braden Schneider. And I hate Braden Schneider. I think Braden Schneider is one of the worst defensemen in the league at this point. He's been playing brain dead hockey for 120 straight games, and I can't watch him anymore. And he just was not worth trading up for. That was a misjudgment, and those types of moves probably would have kept happening. So again, they probably would be better because it takes a special confluence of circumstances plus gross mismanagement by the GM and president to get here. But I'm not confident they would be a contender. No.
So how long do we think it'll take for this club to get back to relevance? I think the Rangers will be relevant in 2 years. I don't think they're going to be good in 2 years, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that. Because I think they're going to be a playoff team in 2 years because they're going to have enough of a return from the guys they're going to move to be able to dress a team that with Fox and Shesterkin can put up 96 points and make the playoffs. But they're not going to go past the second round. So the only thing I do know with an absolute certainty, because I've been told this by a couple of people, JD and Gordon wanted to build around the KZB line. specifically Buchnevich.
Okay.
I don't think they go after Barclay Goodrow and sign him to whatever contract that was. I don't think they go after Ryan Reeves. They wanted to add some toughness and some grit and some north-south play to the KZB line, to Panarin. I don't know what they were going to do with Strome at that point, but they wanted to add a little bit more bite to the roster, and we just don't know what that's going to look like. So I think the team would have been overall better. I don't think they would have fallen off a cliff the way we saw the last 2 years, but I don't think they were a Stanley Cup team in either 22 or 24 with JD and Gordon.
Yeah, agree.
All right. Long time, one time. What's a good movie to watch on Saturday afternoon, say about 1:00? I'm going to go with Old Yeller.
Yeah. How about Bad News Bears?
Yeah,
You ever see
both.
Bad News Bears? Do you know? Like, did that one go over
I
your head?
have not seen
Oh
Bad
man.
News Bears. I know it's on the list.
Yeah, don't watch the original, please. Don't watch the reboot.
Oh God, I'm not watching the reboot. It would be the original. And I'm assuming that so my answer was more of a what's going to be more fun than watching the Rangers, and it's Old Yeller.
Yeah. No, I mean, and mine was a
Yeah.
joke saying that the Rangers are the Bad News Bears right now. I mean, that game very well, it will be 3-0 in the first period. That's where this is right now. And until the Rangers show us something else, that's what you should expect.
All right, Spozo. How does this year's draft class look? They potentially will have 3 or more first rounders. Is the draft deep? What strategy do you take? Use the picks or package to try and move up? P.S. It sickens me to be asking this question in January.
So I'll just preface this by saying I'm not a draft expert.
You want me to give you Will's take to help you out with that?
Well, yeah. So let me just say this, and then I'll let you go.
Okay.
I think what they should and what they will do, frankly, even though again I have very little faith in Drury, is they will use at least one of those picks. If they do end up with 3 first rounders, but I do think you're going to see aggressive trade proposals coming from the Rangers using high draft picks to try and get significant players. I mean, this is what Mercogliano reported this in the, or has basically, not hard reporting, but his understanding of the way they want to proceed is that this is not going to be a full teardown, of course, which it should be, that they're going to try and be aggressive using draft capital to bring in a new generation of core players, star players, however you want to put it. So again, think Jason Robertson, if Brady Tkachuk shakes free, whatever it might be. And I'm not saying this is this offseason either, but like expect the Rangers to use draft picks and trades because I believe, and I've said this a bunch of times, they're more likely to go the Vegas model with their roster building than they are, the I don't know, Colorado model where you're more built through the draft. I think they're probably going to be more try to build through trades.
Great. So the draft class outside of the top 5 or 6 picks is not good. There was a lot because there was a lot of talk last year about how this draft class is going to be amazing, and it's just not.
Yeah,
this
happens all the time. By the way, it's one of my least favorite things in sports. Everybody now just basically they do in football all the time. They're like, no, it's not this draft class, it's the next draft class, and then the same thing happens the following year. So sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but honestly, who cares? You have to operate on this draft class and find fucking 5 players that can help your team. Like, I don't know what to tell you. But anyway, go on.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. So, Spozo, I'm going to say you're being very generous in thinking the Rangers are going to have 3 first-round picks. They're going to keep their own first-round pick, assuming Drury doesn't lose his mind and offer their own first-round pick for Kiefer Sherwood, because now it's basically been confirmed the Rangers offered Othman and a second-round pick, and Vancouver. So if he's willing to put Othman out there for a 31-year-old rental on a shooting bender, I don't know what Drury's going to do. So I don't have any faith that he's going to save these first rounders for somebody who's under the age of 38 years old. And I think they're going to keep their own pick because it's going to be a top 5 pick.
Mm-hmm.
So It should be, assuming they do the right thing and shut Adam Fox down and Igor Shesterkin down for the year. I really don't give a shit what they do with Miller at this point. It's not like he's making the team better.
Right.
So I think they're going to have 2 first-round picks, and they're going to use one of their first-round picks for, I don't know, who's a 35-year-old center? Anze Kopitar. They're going to trade for Anze Kopitar, who's retiring, but they're still going to fucking trade for him anyway. This is where I am with this team. I can't even make legitimate guesses because we don't know what the plan is other than, hey, let's get all of my friends on this team. Fucking idiots.
Yeah.
All of them.
No,
all right. Next one. Richter 1994. Is 2 regulation wins in 19 games enough for Drury to sell? Clearly not, because he's still considering buying.
Yeah, I mean, look, you don't know. I'll say this: this is not a defensive Drury at all. You don't know, when this offer was made and if it was, right after the Winter Classic, right? And they're flying high. They really thought that was going to be a turning point. But yeah, no, listen, I mean, certainly this last week, starting with the Boston game, has to even move the most delusional and childish person ever, Chris Drury, hint, hint, towards the direction of somewhat retooling. You just can't. Look, I'll get on here and trash the guy all day because he deserves it. I don't think he is naive to the issues that need to be solved. I just don't think he knows how to solve them. I don't think it's a serious consideration that they'll be full-on buyers. But look, last year there was well, they're selling, but they also traded for Carson Soucy. You could see similar things, right? If this is a retool, that's why I hate a retool, especially now when the team is bad and has no future. You need to just lean into the full rebuild. I think last year you could at least sort of squint and see the logic of, all right, well, we're going to part with our, our pending UFAs, but we're going to try and bring in guys like Soucy and obviously JT Miller that we think are part of the solution. So, listen, it's at this point, it needs to be a full on sale, but you never know. You might see a guy that's got some term coming back in one of these trades, and let's hope it works, because hope is unfortunately the only plan right now.
All right. And I basically answered that already. So, all right. 2 line passes. Why does Chris Drury still have a job? And what does it take for the old man to fire him? He never fired Glenn Sather. Let's be very clear.
Yes.
James Dolan never fired Glenn Sather. Period.
Right. And look, if you know about the history of the team, you know that the lockout and salary cap saved Glenn Sather from himself. He was no longer able to pursue the high-priced free agent roster building model. And the Rangers fell somewhat ass backwards into a decent team in 2005, 2006, led by Jaromir Jagr, Marty Straka. Oh, by the way, a rookie Henrik Lundqvist, who was awesome. And they were on their way, right, to sort of the new era of hockey that we've enjoyed for the last 20 years. But no, to your point, Dave, look, he didn't fire Sather. He didn't fire Isaiah Thomas for a very long time, kept him on as an advisor for a long time, had him working for the Liberty when the Liberty were part of the Gardens portfolio. They're not part of it anymore. He is almost fully a loyalty relationships guy. That is his management style. These are aging, rich white men that don't really know anything else, right? That this is how he got the job. He got it from his father, and all he saw were things handed to people because of their relationships, and basically who sucked up to me, right? And Chris Drury's been sucking up to James Dolan since he retired early and let the Rangers get out of his contract. So, look, this is where that starts. If you want a little history lesson on the Rangers and the anatomy of all this, right? Chris Drury was on a bloated bad contract. He was a bad player. And the Rangers were stuck with his cap hit for, I think, at least 2 more seasons. You probably remember better than I do, Dave. And he retired early, and that freed the money up for the Rangers. And I think Dolan basically feels like he still owes him for that. He always will see him as a good soldier, and he'll always give you the bullshit line about, oh, he's a winner, which we know is is a specious argument, to say the least.
It's a crappy argument. Dude lucked into the Colorado Avalanche thing. Yeah, he was a key contributor. But he lucked into that situation. Yeah. And then he won 1 Little League World Series. He won 0 NCAA championships. I don't give a shit about his Calder and his Hobie Baker. I get it.
Those are individual awards. Who cares? No Ranger fan wants individual awards. We want playoff appearances and a fucking Stanley Cup.
Yep. So Drury has won nothing aside. He has won nothing since 2001.
It's 25 years ago.
Oh, God. I was about to say 24.
Yeah.
Shows what I know. All right. We got 3 minutes until your 9:30 date.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we can stretch it by a little more, but let's rapid fire.
ASFJR. You need to tell us what that means. Now that the World Juniors are over and it's 2026, who would you consider with their first pick, assuming it's in the 5 to 10 range? If it's Malhotra, so that is Caleb Malhotra?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
Let me just double check.
I've got to start doing my draft reading. I'll be honest. I don't know anybody other than Gavin McKenna.
So Caleb Malhotra. Does his dad step in and forbid him from signing?
No, God, no. Stop.
So
this isn't college football or the NBA. That shit doesn't happen in the NHL.
It doesn't happen in the NHL, but I, being an enjoyer of absolute chaos, and this would be so Rangers, I want them to draft Caleb Malhotra, rush him up to the NHL in his, right afterwards. So starting the 2026-2020 season, 2026-2027 season, there we go. Rush him up, make him play, and then trade him to Vancouver for nothing.
Yeah.
I just want it to come full circle.
By the way, I should check myself there. Adam Fox didn't. So it does happen. There is some precedent. I shouldn't say that. But I don't see that happening. I think it's very rare. So, but I shouldn't say it never happens because it does happen from time to time.
I can't imagine Manny Malhotra coming in and saying, "Don't sign with the New York Rangers." No. I can't imagine that happening.
No, me either.
All right. So next one, producer J. This is for producer JL. If I recall correctly, you support the Rangers, the Mets, and the Jets. You must be atoning for one hell of a sin in a previous life. Who's your basketball team? The Washington Generals?
You have JL's answer, right?
I think, he's a Knicks fan.
He's a Knicks fan. He supports the Knicks. And he did say, because I have it here too, he said... he is suffering for the greater good for the sports teams because sports hates me and not everyone else. I don't quite get that, but I read it verbatim.
Yep. So if you got questions, ping him on social and he'll answer.
He'll be back next week too.
Yep. That too.
Or the week after.
So there's another one. There's another question from Midline Shift. What are the odds Drury wildly overpays for a mediocre player in this underwhelming free agent class? Is the money going to burn a hole in his pocket?
That's a great question. I think the odds are let's call them 60-40 no. So I'll say I'm leaning that he'll be smart enough to weaponize the cap space in other ways, keep powder dry, however you want to say it. But there's certainly a very good chance of that happening. And the Rangers coming away with some player that, is destined to have one good season, one mediocre season, and then be an absolute train wreck for the final 5 years of whatever 7-year contract they hand out. So, he doesn't have a great track record here. But, I do think, look, if they finish in last, which they are on pace to do here, they're not going to have any illusions of where they stand and what they need to do. So now look, at the same time, again, and this is maybe me being a little bit overly optimistic, cap space is an advantage that they have, and they are at least in a decent position with their books here that they can bring in significant players and they can take on a major contract or two to their benefit, right? Either by bringing in a very good player or by taking on a contract and getting another asset with it. So, and I don't think that takes a genius. I know people think that that's 4D chess. That's pretty normal stuff. I'm hoping the Rangers operate that way. And at the same time, look, if there's a player that fits and can help them, look, what I don't want them to do is get into the Buffalo Sabres cycle of doom, which they're only now maybe just coming out of, where you're bad for 10 years because all you do is well, we got to tank, we got to finish last because we need more high picks. Like, you should try to get out of this as quickly as possible. Because otherwise the losing becomes perpetual, and you need to look no further than the New York Jets as an example of that. The Buffalo Sabres, the Edmonton Oilers before Connor McDavid materialized. It is very hard to get out of a long-term cycle of losing. So the Rangers should not just sit idly by in free agency if there are players that can fit and help. But that said, yeah, they should not be handing out, they should not be overpaying for above average or slightly above average players, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I just want to bring this full circle now because we're talking about offseason, but a lot of the offseason is going to be driven by what they do at the trade deadline. And the fact that we know now the Rangers offered Othman and a second for Kiefer Sherwood, probably like you said, right after the Winter Classic, which was turned down. And as per insider trading on TSN, the Rangers hope to decide on what to do with Panarin and the team direction before the Olympic break. How have you not made your decision and seen what this team fucking is by now? It is January 15th. This team sucks.
Yep.
How have you not figured that everybody sees it? The New York Jets are getting a little bit wary that maybe a different team's going to, outclass them for the biggest shit show in New York.
Yeah. No, listen.
You still don't know how bad this team is? Are you fucking kidding me? They're terrible. If you're not going to blow it up, do what you need to do. Dump Panarin, dump Trocheck, fire Miller into the sun. I don't fucking care what you do. If you buy, I'm going to lose my fucking mind. I've already lost my mind anyway, so it doesn't matter. But are you kidding me that you still don't know what this team is? At January 15th, you're fifth to worst in the league by points percentage. You're the last place team behind the Columbus fucking Blue Jackets in the Eastern Conference. The only reason why teams are worse than you is because you're looking at Calgary and Vancouver behind you. And how are you this bad at your fucking job that you don't know what this team is by now?
Vancouver already tanked, but they're done. They sold their player. They are into a rebuild. So you're right. I mean, no, this is as bad as it gets. And I was holding on to hope, especially the first 20 games of the year with the underlying numbers and the lack of puck luck, but they have shown their true colors. And I think, unfortunately, what we saw in the first 20 games or so was the best possible version of this team, which is not good enough, right? There wasn't enough skill to back up the metrics to make it matter. So this is better now that they've had a couple of key injuries. I'm obviously not wishing ill health on anybody, but it exposes the flaws and it brings you to this point where you have to understand what's going on and act accordingly. So are there any more questions or are we done?
There are no questions, and you just got a 10-minute warning before Becky starts the episode.
Amazing. So listen, this has been I think therapeutic.
Cathartic, yes.
And I think we will have in subsequent shows as the year goes on, we'll start talking about we'll react to the moves that they do make. But I think we will take our own, sort of macro view at how should they do it, right? I think, people come here for that, because I think everybody feels like they're smarter than Chris Drury at this point, and rightfully so. So, we'll start working on that. There will be plenty of time to discuss the impending rebuild. Dave, always a pleasure. Those were probably some of your best rants at the top and bottom of the show, end of the show. So, kudos to you. And any final thoughts?
Thank you. If anybody here is still thinking that Chris Kreider was the problem, you're fucking delusional. You belong with this team and with Chris Drury.
Let's end it on that note. Thanks, everybody, for listening. We'll talk to you next week.